आगे चल के कभी जरूरत पड़े नहीं पड़े, women need to be financially independent is what I sort of took away from that, because I mean there is no other way of being anymore.
This week on Questions I Wanted to Ask, joining me is Shilpa Keswani. Shilpa leads the gaming content partnerships for YouTube in India. From studying engineering to being part of Femina Miss India, being a television anchor to now working for YouTube India, Shilpa has had a very, very interesting career trajectory. Shilpa and I speak a lot of things working women deal with, good and bad, getting back to work after pregnancy, and how she's been handling work, family, kids, and everything else that matter to her. Welcome to Questions I Wanted to Ask. This is such a pleasure to have you. I know it's taken us a lot. It's taken me a lot of time to convince you to come and talk, but it is very, very sweet of you to agree to do this. I know you don't talk, but I remember the last time when we had this conversation, and I told you we have to talk because the common topic is women's lives, and हम झंडा लेके feminism का झंडा नहीं गाड़ने वाले हैं. And you said, okay, for that I'm going to speak. So thank you so much for coming and talking to me.
No, thank you for having me. Like, it's the pleasure is all mine. The pleasure is all mine.
So I'm going to take a step back and just talk a little bit about you, who you are. Of course, we are going to talk about the work that you're doing with with so many of the creative people that you work with, etc., and the impact that you bring there, along with what you're doing in personal life and managing kids and family and all of that stuff. I think I just wanted to go back and talk a little bit about your childhood. So you were born in Nagpur.
Yeah.
And
born in Nagpur, raised for, I think, I segregated, till I was about 13, it was Nagpur and a lot of the little towns in and around, because dad was working in the government services with Maharashtra. And then after 13 is when we moved to Pune, and then that was home. So I call the Pune journey as my conscious years.
Sure. It's so surprising that sometimes maybe before the 13 or the 12, the teens actually, when they kick up, it's the initial years which kind of lay the foundation of who you are. Do you want to talk about your growing up in smaller towns and Nagpur, and how was it?
Sure. So Nagpur, I guess we don't call it as much of a small town today, but I think in the truest sense of the way, we used to call it probably a tier 2, tier 3 city up until a few years ago also.
Back,
yeah. And it was a very close-knit sort of thing. I think growing up, by and large, going with the thread of, we're trying to talk to women about, how to sort of be and handle. I think one of the things that I had seen around me was a lot of strong women. And I think my mom landed up being a very, very big influence in that. I mean, she was always like, you guys have to pay attention ki English achhe se seekhni hai, because even though we went to really good schools, it was like, chalta hai, at the end of the day, education is education. No one's insisting that you speak a language or, pay attention to English. And she was convent educated. So she was like, I have to make sure that the kids learn. So actually, that was one part of it that I actually started learning English when we moved to Pune, and we watched a lot of English movies, because it was just like, you were a little bit of an outcast or the oddball in school if you weren't able to speak the language, didn't get your pronunciations right and stuff. And then the other thing that I have in terms of memories from my time in Nagpur is how my mom actually fought all odds in order to sort of be the primary breadwinner. What I essentially mean is dad, of course, he's always been the solid foundation of the house in various sense of the ways, but with the government jobs and stuff, we know
it's
exactly
limited
how
income.
It's fairly limited income. There aren't too many other sources that come in, so it has to mom was very progressive right from the beginning. She wanted us to go to better schools and get us a better life rather than just living in the small pond that we were in, because of which she basically fought all odds. And back then, she actually went ahead and opened a salon. And, women opening a salon in our family at that point of time was really, really looked down upon. They were like, नाई का काम करने वाले हो, इसमें क्या respect है, ऐसा कैसे कर सकते हो, kind of thing. This is not okay. So all hell had broken loose, but I had seen her be really, really firm and said that, I have to be a double income household in order to help my
Just
family grow and
just
go
she
ahead.
wanted to give a
Yeah.
better life to you guys.
Yeah. So that actually has been one of the things that has stayed with me always. So, irrespective of आगे चल के कभी जरूरत पड़े नहीं पड़े, women need to be financially independent is what I sort of took away from that. Because, I mean, there is no other way of being anymore.
Yeah. And it is that foundation that has kind of led you to whatever you've done in terms of professional capacity, but the main value or the main objective that I have to continue to be financially independent is what has made you thrive so far.
Yeah, like किसी के सामने, even if it is my spouse, because he is my family, मुझे कहीं पे भी कभी भी हाथ नहीं फैलाना है कि आप मुझे ये ड्रेस लेने के लिए पैसे दीजिए या ये ज्वेलरी खरीदने के लिए पैसे दीजिए या कुछ. Like if it is a basic need जो मुझे अच्छा लगता है, I should be in a position where I'll ask him, but if he says no and I still want it, I should be able to fund
to
it
buy
myself.
it.
Yeah.
But
and like the amount of, I think, mental peace that gives, that you can take care of yourself is just unbelievable. It's just like, I had a year, and we had talked about this. I had a year in between when I had gone and studied and stuff like that. So I had very little income, and getting started, years ka salary, there wasn't much to save, especially living in Mumbai and stuff like that. And like, at that point of time, I used to ask him to give me like a recurring stipend on a monthly basis. And I was like, this is
hard.
Nahi karna hai mujhe. I have to be independent.
I know. I mean, tell me about it, because every time I have taken a break or whatever little break I have every time taken from my, consistent income or whatever, I have felt that pinch ki uncomfortable. I mean, nobody's saying no and all of that, but I think aadat ho jati. It's as good as men earning, right? And the moment they stop earning, wo aadat chhoot jati. It takes away your sense of freedom.
Yeah, it does. And it curbs, I think it curbs you in so many ways. It's not just about you start killing your desires. Your confidence also lands up taking a little bit of a hit. I mean, at least I had felt at that time, when I was dependent on him for that year and a half. And he is amazing. Like, he would never bat an eyelid or question any decision and stuff. But I was just like, should I ask him for the money? Basically, यानी वही रहा ना कि बताना पड़ेगा कि मुझे ये लेने की इच्छा है, and can you help me? Can I do it myself?
Yeah. I mean, I think even I started earning quite early, and I feel that the person it has shaped me to become, right? Ever since I started like earning at 21, 22 to what am I now? It's not just the sense of freedom, it's also the ability to take decisions. जो बहुत बड़ी चीज होती है, because then that decision making kind of pretty much, I think, follows through in every aspect of your life when you're making decisions for yourself, for your career, for your kids, for your family. I think pretty much everywhere, right? And you're very sure of then what to do. I mean, of course, you will always seek advice and guidance and help and all of that stuff, but that decision making does put you a little bit, gives you that edge above and beyond everything else. And
I think it is the confidence. It just gives you the confidence to be who you are and shape your I mean, I think it falls a little more in corporate terms, but it basically helps you shape your narrative. The position you want to take within the family, the position you want to take outside the society, and all, because you are independent, you're able to say, this is who I am. I am not waiting for you to guide my hand or who my personality should be like based on your idiosyncrasies. This is who I am, take it or leave it. And that is so liberating, because I think men have always been able to do
that. I mean, our generation of women is just starting. Some of us are just starting to do that. And it's probably the first or the second generation, if I have to even take that liberty wherein that
Yeah.
financial independence has come. And
Yeah.
when I look at my cousins or my extended family who are in tier 2 towns, or even who are living in metros or whatever, and the women are not working, I think the
Yeah.
only advice I have for them, or I always tell them, is financial independence is important.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean
Yeah.
anything else. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean कि तुम हस्बैंड को से बड़े बन जाओगे, उससे बेटर बन
Yeah. Yeah.
जाओगे, किसी और पे
Absolutely.
ज्यादा इम्पैक्ट हो जाएगा. It's just for your own
Yeah.
mental, to
Yeah.
keep yourself mentally sane.
Yeah.
But so I want to know, so you actually went to college after getting married?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, how was that?
So
Like,
I
what?
okay. So I got married fairly early, as I would like
Okay.
to. I think 24 was fairly early when we did get married. By then, I had just about finished engineering. I was working with a television channel in Mumbai, and then I was just still trying to figure out what to do next. And my parents were like,
Uh,
"Would you want to study ahead?" I was like, "दो तीन साल का experience लेते हैं, उसके बाद देखेंगे," kind of thing. And then I landed up meeting my husband. And then, I think one of the things that really struck me in my early conversations with him and his family was that I may want to study ahead. Like, is this something that you are willing to support? Because it may not necessarily be in the city that I am going to be
so it was
married
an
in.
arranged marriage.
It was, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So it's
Lovely.
like, yeah. So it was like, I think that essentially what like really sold me to the idea of that marriage is not the be all and end all of my life. I could find a partner who was supportive of it. So like I think after like 2 years of being married, I went and pursued my MBA, went to Canada, and then we were figuring out whether we wanted to move there or come back. But then he was very clear that a lot is going on in India from his career opportunities, so I should come back. But yeah, I mean, I honestly, like, I think one of the things I was sharing with you also when we were talking, like, one thing about Lean In that stayed with me that Sheryl Sandberg had written was, the most important decision that you make in your life is the partner. And I'm like, I couldn't agree more because I
More.
live it
Absolutely.
every day. I live it every day.
Yeah. And in fact, I mean, because mine was also an arranged marriage, the notion कि अगर आप arranged marriage कर रहे हो तो then your partner will not be compatible, और वो आपकी dreams को fulfill नहीं करने देगा, या he will not be is so wrong, because ऐसा नहीं है. I mean, men are equally educated and equally exposed and progressive, and it can be as beautiful as you want it to be. It's just that the guy needs to be right and needs to have clarity.
In fact, to that, like, I also land up adding, like, I think we women, and I can generalize a little bit because I've been through this journey, as progressive as my parents were, they were always like, we want the girls to eventually settle down, find a partner and stuff, to be able to just like move ahead in life. And while I completely agree that, having a partner helps you sort of open your horizons, think a little bigger, push a little bit on your boundaries and stuff. But then, the time it takes to find the partner, I wish we could say this to the parents, and I wish we could say this to the girls, that don't rush into marriages. Don't rush into the first partner you land up seeing and meeting. And I know not everyone has the luxury to do that, but take as much time as you can in finding the right partner, because that is really the make and break of the rest of your life, or the way your life post-marriage is going to sort of shape.
I don't think so. I could put it better, in a much better way, because when I wanted to move from a job to entrepreneurship, or whenever I want, in fact, this podcast, when I wanted to do, it has always been the husband who's like, "Oh, why don't you do it?" And just that push from the house, it means the world to you.
Absolutely.
And it's so beautiful, because the other day I was doing another podcast call, and one of the guests also spoke, and she's not married, and she spoke about how her father has been like a very, very important part of who she has become today. He's chilled, he's cool, he's okay for her to come back at 1 or 2 at night, but that's given her wings. And I think it's equally, as much as we can become progressive and this thing, the partner needs to be equally, I would say, secure enough, for you to to fly, actually. But so you guys stayed apart, when you were in Canada and he was in India.
Yes.
And obviously there were no kids at that time.
No kids at that time.
And then you came back, and then you joined Google.
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
So
okay.
right after business school, I mean, once we came back was when I had to start looking at opportunities. I had always had inclination around working in media. I always enjoyed working very closely with content, and then it was just
Yeah.
like about finding the right opportunity, and just the amount of time we spend, I'm literally bringing the connection that, we take time to find the right job based on our skill sets, based on the
Yeah.
culture of a company and all of those things.
Yeah.
I took a reasonable amount of time before I actually circled on the opportunity that came up in YouTube.
Lovely, lovely. But I want to take a little back, step and talk about even before NDTV, there was a little period when you actually participated in Miss India.
Before Zoom. So I was with Zoom.
Sorry, with Zoom.
Yeah.
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 You
Yeah.
so this is fresh out of
Yeah.
college? I'm just saying that in during engineering, you decided that you want to try modeling or being in the fashion space. That's when you kind of took that switch or decided to try that.
So actually, I think a little bit of the modeling thing that I had started doing was really for kicks. Honestly, I did it right after my 12th grade, also in between, because in between the admissions for engineering and the 12th grade exams, we had like a good 4 months that happened, and there were a bunch of these random contests that would come up, and my parents were like, why don't you try and do something if you want to? And I'd always look at it because Femina Miss India was this big thing
The
that would
big
always
thing,
happen.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I would sit and watch. Like, I think it was every girl's dream to be on the stage, kind of thing.
And
So
that
mom and dad were
moment,
like,
that moment
yeah,
those questions are asked and you are like, oh my
yeah.
God.
Yeah. And like every time, we would land up seeing, and when the opportunity came, mom was like, if you want to go and try, give it a hand. Like, you have time right now. And then I didn't really think very much about pursuing it further until I think I reached the 4th year of my engineering, and I was like, what, I really do want to see if I can give it a shot at Miss India. I don't know what it would be like. And parents were like, finish your 4th year, finish your final year, finish your internship and stuff, and then I'm okay to get you started on that. And I think that in itself showed how progressive they were. Like, coming from, at least in my head, like, coming from the background where the family had resisted mom going ahead and starting a salon, to my parents being, you want to fulfill a dream, go ahead. Like, at best, what, a year into trying to figure out what you want to do next. That, and like you said, like, the family push, when the parents are itself very chill about it, you're like, I want to give it the best, because I'm not fighting against any odd in order to try and do it. This is, I want to do the very best that I can. And that was a really fun year. I am glad I did something like that, because otherwise it would have been very plain Jane life. Otherwise, engineering ke baad job, and then, eventually get married and kids and stuff. So yeah, it gives a little more color to my narrative, and I'll probably sit and talk about about it to my kids or grandkids later.
But I remember you telling me that you participating in Femina, Miss India also led to a lot more opportunities. And while it was like a diversion from the normal thought of, career path or whatever we want to call it. But I want you to talk about it because, we are so, especially as Indians, we are so uh, attuned to thinking in one singular way, right? We don't try, we don't, matlab engineering karna hai, MBA karna hai, and job lena hai, more or less. Of course, things are changing now. And especially in case of women, because, you are always like, oh, biological clock, koi na koi clock tick ho hi rehti. I'm sorry, koi na koi clock tick hoti rehti hai, hamesha. Kabhi shaadi ki clock, bachche ki clock. I mean, even when you have kids, it's like the day clock. It's like, oh my God, ab ye khatam karna hai, wo khatam karna hai. But tell me, was there no hurry ki, matlab, abhi, oh my God, like, ab meko ye karna hai, but ye diversion ho gaya. What was in your mind at that time?
See, I think, again, like, it literally came that parents were so supportive. So I was like, let's take it one step at a time. One thing I was clear after engineering, and I am still very happy about that decision, was I'm not going to be a core engineer in a day-to-day 9 to 5 job, because I just didn't see myself getting there by the time I finished my 4th year and stuff like that. I mean, I still did like decent from a student point of view. I was a reasonably good student, but then I was just like, I will not be the best in terms of application. And this was one of the things that had always been in my head, that I don't want to be average at whatever I do. I want to be
Sure.
really good at what I'm doing, so that I never have to drag my feet to work at the end of the day, because I'll spend
Hmm.
the best of my energies at work, right? At the end of the
Hmm.
day.
Hmm.
So like it was more like an agreement that we had with my parents, that I'll take this year where I'll focus on moving to Mumbai, modeling, giving it a shot to Miss India. If I win the title, then I will give it another couple of years in the industry and see where it goes.
Hmm.
But if I don't win the title, I promise we'll just figure the next course of my life. But for that time, it was a 1 year plan that we wanted to sort of agree on. And
Hmm.
fortunately, I came up in the top 5 of the Miss India. I was supposed to go for an international tourism pageant that kept getting delayed. So then, after a point, it was like, okay, now the patience is sort of running out. I actually
Hmm.
anchored for the television channel before I started the job with them also. So yeah, I
Yep.
mean, I would say, like, going to Miss India was probably one of the best decisions I made, which the
Hmm.
parents facilitated so much, because
Hmm.
I don't think I would have been able to open the size of my opportunities that much if I had just stayed within Pune and had been looking for a job in and around over there. At least from
Yeah.
the background that I came, we hadn't traveled a whole lot. We hadn't, like, we had a reasonably good social life, but it wasn't like, oh, itni sari cheezein kar sakte hain. It just
It's a
became like
normal middle
collecting
class
opportunities.
upbringing. It's a normal middle
Yeah,
class upbringing
yeah,
wherein you only go or thrive अगर academically आपने बहुत अच्छा कर
yeah,
लिया है, मतलब
yeah.
उसके अलावा कोई रास्ता नहीं पता होता है हमें.
Yeah. And academics was always very, very important at home. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, this opportunity that the parents enabled was just like life changing for me in every way possible.
Hmm, hmm, hmm. Interesting. So I mean, you did Miss India, then you went, got married, you
Anchored.
went to Anchored, yes, of course,
Yeah.
and got married, came back.
Yeah.
Sorry, did your MBA, came back, and then joined Google.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I think a new kind of chapter of your life started because you had your
Yeah.
kids. You had your elder one, what, almost 7 years back, 8 years back.
6 years back.
6 years back, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is all through with the job.
Yeah. It is. It is. Yeah. Yeah.
And did
I
you
mean,
have
I
a
think it was. Sorry.
sorry, did you have a plan, like, that okay, now I've joined the job, and then
No.
after some time I'm going to have this the first child, and then I'm going to give it a break, and then have the second child? Like, was there a plan?
No, I don't think I have lived my life on that many plans, honestly. It's been like,
Huh.
one step at a time. I think the only thing that I was clear about right at the beginning when we were getting married also was like, I'm not going to have kids jaldi say immediately. That's really not going to be the priority. I'm still very young. I want to try and figure out more opportunities. I'm agreeing to get married just when, like, I think I was getting started from a career point of view. So it was like, and fortunately, like, my husband was very supportive of everything. He's like, yeah, we'll just take one step at a time. When we feel we're ready, we will get to the point of wanting to have kids and stuff like that. So there was never really a hindrance from his, or even from his side of the family ever, that abhi ye karna hai, abhi wo karo, kind of thing. It was like, as long as the kids are happy, that's all that matters. So I think that freedom, and I was telling you also, I feel very, very lucky and very, very blessed that I've had the kind of family support that has come in through not just my parents, from my in-laws, as well as my husband, to be able to enable me to make all the decisions in my life that I have made so far.
But
So yeah, kids happened when we thought we were ready. It was, I think,
sure.
a year and a half into the job. It wasn't planned ki, I will start my job and then I will have a kid. It was not
Hmm.
something like that.
Hmm.
But just like, I think it felt a certain thing about feeling settled came in for both of us, where we found a rhythm with
Sure.
each other, and we had done all of the traveling that we wanted to do. I finished at least the goal that I had at that point of time around my studies and stuff like that. So it was like, okay, now we can consider, and then it just happened.
But did you were you worried because maybe so after 1.5 years of being in Google, it is still
Yeah.
fairly
Yeah.
early time, right? Were you worried
Yeah.
ki the moment I will go on maternity leave, I'm going to lose out on opportunities, maybe my growth is going to get stopped or stunted, or like what was in your head at that time?
So I think two things were there. I mean, one was, of course, that I had a little more confidence having been through as many points and experiences that I had collected, that I will be okay-ish. And especially the organization that I was a part of, like, they were
Sure.
always very supportive of people with families and stuff like that. There was always
Sure.
room given. And it's very like impact-driven environment. If you do the work, it doesn't matter whether you are giving FaceTime or how many hours you are necessarily putting in.
Sure.
What really matters is the impact that you drive at the end of the day. And if you fulfill that, it's fine. Like, you having a kid, not having a kid does not make it a separate benchmark to assess you against how you will be performing against the peers and stuff. So that was, I think, a very, very comforting feeling that I
Comforting.
will come back to the same place that accepts and acknowledges and welcomes people with families and
That's
stuff.
very
But
important.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
But
that sort of cushioned it. But the amount of insecurity that I went through from the time of, like, I think the third trimester, when I had to start
hmm,
handing over my work, to not being 100% sure of what I was going to come back to,
hmm,
was just like, it was like mind boggling. Uske baad, it
yeah.
was like, will life really be the same? Will I be actually able to come back and work with the same gusto as I did before the kid? I mean, what will really change in my life, kind of thing? And I think
Yeah.
those insecurities brought in various mood changes and stuff like that in me. But then I think 6-8 months after being back, it was like nothing changed,
Yeah.
because I think again, like, mom says that, God is very partial to you. And I probably believe in it in some way right now, is because I was also gifted with such fabulous managers who were like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you do what you need to do in the way that
Hmm.
you need to do. This is what needs to be accomplished. I mean,
We
you
don't
figure it
care
out
how
how
it
you want
is.
to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. But so
yeah,
you resumed like after what, 6 months at that time? Was
yeah,
it 3 months? I
yeah.
think 3 months. It was
No,
3 months at that.
no, I mean, I think Google has always had a
six
much
months
better maternity policy. So
maternity
at that point of
policies.
time, we had 20 weeks, when
Huh.
it used to be a 3-month mandate in India. I think the
Hmm.
6-month happened much later.
Yeah, yeah,
But I
yeah,
had taken
yeah.
the 6 months at that time to come back. It just had been a very, very lucky time. And a lot of my insecurities were put to rest once I came back to work, because I also recognized that when I came back to work, that in a matter of 4 to 5 months, the world
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really change, except for, like,
Yeah,
situations like a pandemic. The world
yeah.
doesn't really change as such that you can't pick up from where you left off. I mean, just the way we
Sure.
are able to pick up conversations with close friends, I think work is just that. And
Yeah.
I don't know how we can probably emphasize this to more of our female partners and peers
Mm-hmm.
who are not sure when they have to, whether they can come back to work, whether they need to be the primary caregivers, because you can be an amazing primary caregiver when you have a purpose in life which has to be beyond just the kids. And
Yeah,
there are lots of things. I was reading yesterday, just a headline, like, there are too many things that probably will make you a bad mother, but only you
yeah,
know what is the right formula and right equilibrium in order to do justice to your kids. I know
yeah.
for me, I would never have been a happy mom if I stayed at home with my kid as the center of my universe. I would not have
Sure.
done justice. I think I do more in the 2 to 4 hours that I get dedicated with them than the 12 hours waking hours that I would have with them.
Yeah. So it was not like there was no fear when you came back. Of course, there were fears, but you kind of
There were
worked on
lots of
them.
anxieties. Yeah,
Yeah.
there were lots
Yeah.
of anxieties. There were lots of insecurities. There was always like, will I fall behind in the race compared to my peers? My promotion will get stuck because it's been 6 months since I have been out of the workforce and stuff like that.
Mm,
But then
mm.
I think what it also forced me to think is like, let's look at the larger picture. I
Yeah.
did take the 6 months because I made a personal decision. And yes, that is what lands up happening with a lot of us women when we want to have kids and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
that doesn't, I mean, a year here and there at the end of the day does not really impact in the longer run.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I could have taken that 1 year as a break to go on vacation. That time would still be the gap in between where my work is. So it's
Yeah.
literally like, we have to make peace with it.
So this is work front, but what about the kid, the elder one? Uh, I mean, were you worried that, oh my God, how am I going? I mean, now when you look at it, लगता है कि सब अच्छे से हो गया, no problem and all of it. But especially when you're the first time mother, right? And second time, I guess it normalizes a lot more. But first time you're way more anxious. You also don't know how to handle the child. You're not sure of things yourself, right?
Yeah.
Were you, so when you were at work, and at that time obviously none of us were working from home, were you worried when you were in office? Were you worried about what is it going to be like? Lots of things, starting from your feeds to like food to whatever. Is he going to miss me? That quintessential question, that is he going to miss me? Is he going to be attached to me? Did those questions come to your mind?
Of course. I mean, see, we cannot run away from those questions. They're there because, I mean, at the end of the day, we had a kid because we have the love that we can shower on another human being. So, like, there was the perpetual guilt that would be there. Am I doing enough? Is the kid okay and stuff? But like, that's what also brought in the other side of me with like security cameras at home. And I'm like, watching the kid on my phone when I'm at work. Every time I have a break, I'm calling up the nanny and checking in and, seeing how things are. And then when I know I have a predictable schedule in the evening, if I don't really have like a lot of meetings packed up, I would say, why don't you guys come over here? We'll go home together in a rickshaw or something like that. Becomes an outing for the baby, as well as I get to spend that additional 15 minutes. So we did all of that. And I mean, see, we can't escape mother's guilt. Yeah. We will be guilty for anything and everything. We can't escape it. Can we?
I've not been able to.
Yeah, we can't. I don't know who has been. Like, I want to meet that person who is zen enough to not have any mother's guilt.
All I know is women actually always working on this. Like, ek kaam mil jata hai, I think, the moment you become a mother. This is one, like, it's like self working on self, right? Working on your confidence or working on your health. It's like another job that you get. Okay, now I have to work on my guilt also. No, this is okay. This is not okay. It's like that.
Yeah. So I haven't overcome my mother's guilt. I am perpetually guilty about it, about something or the other in a day that I would be guilty about. And then I want to try and overcompensate. But I think, like I was saying earlier also, like, there has to be what works for you at the end of the day. For me, I was sure I want to work. I want to have my financial independence, and I want to have a purpose outside my kids' life. Because for me, again, like, I think what helped me take a look at it was from a bigger picture point of view. Kids will, in 5 or 6 years, the kids start going to school. They've gone from 8 o'clock till 3 o'clock. What do I do with my time then? Do I want to be a homemaker? It's absolutely fine if I was the kind of woman who was comfortable being a homemaker, but I wasn't. I always wanted to have a sense of my own identity, which is different from my kids and separated from my husband at the end of the day. And I had to make it work, like, because I just decided that's how it has to be.
But do you get that thing now, especially because your elder one is 6, and that phase where you're sending them to classes, and in your case maybe a soccer or all of those things. Are not personally there to take the child most of the times. Of course, you have assisted help wherever, and there are mothers in those classes who are there and you are not there. Do you sometimes worry about that part where, oh my God, I'm not able to take my child to, like, I had to make that conscious call ki I won't be able to send my daughter to those 6 classes, right? And I don't want to some extent. I'm happy sending those 2 classes where I might go personally or I might not go personally. But I'm okay with that. So did those thoughts come into your mind?
Yeah. Like I used to send my kid to soccer when, of course, we were still doing physical classes and stuff like that. And initially I went in and sat for a few days and I was like, this is just not scalable. So I stopped going. And there were times when the kid would come up and he's like, my friend's mama came, but why didn't you come? You didn't see me hit the goal and stuff. And, as heartbreaking as it was, Anshu, one of the things that also stayed with me going all the way back to my early years was that when mom used to work in her salon, there were days she would work till like 11 o'clock at night. We have gone and picked her up from her salon and said that, let's go home and stuff like that. I have, I have consciously gone and spent my afternoon with her after school because she would not be able to come home and spend time with us. And, again, like, there was the luxury that it was a smallish town and I could walk to where her work was and stuff like that. But like, I have seen that she made those sacrifices, which is what has shaped my work ethic. It has shaped my moral responsibility towards towards the work that I have taken on, any commitment that I have taken on. So I'm like, I am hoping that with the trade-offs that we are making, with that little guilt that we encounter, I am giving my kids the foundation. And I have two boys, so I am giving them the foundation that mom also needs to work, and sometimes it's okay for some trade-offs to happen. For the very important stuff, my parents will be there, but it's not like my parents will be available all the time, and that is okay.
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
I
it's
want
also
my
leading
boys to
by.
grow up. Yeah, it is absolutely, exactly. It is leading by example. I want my kids to be able to support their partners, whether they're girls, boys, whatever eventually they choose to be, but they have to support their partner in whatever choices they make,
Yeah.
and respect the commitments that they have. And like, and follow it with example themselves. So you make a commitment of going to a class, you go to the class, irrespective of who's coming and who isn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, I mean, I guess conscious parenting, because you have two boys and you've been blessed to have an amazing partner. So I'm sure you, somewhere at the back of your mind, you also want to equally raise,
Yeah.
gentlemen or boys who value the woman's work and
Yeah.
woman's actually equality as much as,
Yes.
you do. But
Yeah.
are there any conscious steps that you do take towards that in feeding that thing? Because obviously we're all going through that change, right? From a patriarchal to slightly moving
Yeah.
towards a neutral setup. I mean, and
Yeah.
we're just at the
Yeah.
beginning. So
I mean, I think, again, like, it's, I think I have a wonderful partner who's helping lead by example in
lead
such
by
a way. Like, I
example.
don't have
Yeah.
to consciously say anything. Like, when I have a meeting, my
Huh.
husband's willing to step in if he doesn't have any other commitments to, help take care of the kids. Like, we have partnered 50-50 on diaper changing, to taking the kid out for walks, to be able to put the kid to sleep, or, even through the terrible feeding times and stuff like that. So they've seen that this is not only my mom's job. It is something
Yeah.
that my dad also steps into doing. So far, haven't had to do anything very conscious so far. I guess when they start chattering in school and certain conversations will come up, we will figure it out.
Yeah. The girl
Um,
phase.
yeah. When those happen, and I think my little one once had said, like, Mama's always in the kitchen. I was like, dude, I am not going to go to the kitchen now. I am going to step out of it. I was
Yeah.
like, you guys don't want the good food I'm making now. I am not going anymore.
So you are between what, 10 to 5, 6, whatever, and I know you're very particular about your timings. You are
Yeah.
on calls, work, and then you're cooking. Has this pandemic been difficult?
It has been difficult at many levels. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
tested our mental resilience more than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, during this pandemic, being at home and not being available for the kids has been harder than actually
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
office and not being available to them. Because for them, it's like, when you're visible, you're there. Right now,
Yeah.
you're visible, but you're not there. And like, when statements come in that, but mama, you're always on a call. But mama, you don't talk when you're on a call. And I'm just like, how do I set the ground rules, and how do I plan this better that they
Better.
don't really take that away? Like, I feel a lot more disservice is happening to the kids and our relationships with them, because we are always at home at this point of time. And there is no way I
Yeah.
can shut the door to a 6 and a 2-year-old right now. I
Yeah.
mean,
I
I
know.
have to keep an open door policy for them to walk in. And then, there was something very interesting. Another partner of mine was talking, the amount of context switching we women have to land up doing, like, just switch context, attend to the kid, come back, attend to the food, come back, is
Compartment.
just
Yeah.
remarkable.
Yeah.
It's remarkable. Yeah.
It's actually more than remarkable. I think, honestly, I feel after 1 year of doing this, it's
Yeah.
tough, and let's
It's
admit it,
really
it's
hard.
not easy. And I think
It's,
you and I
yeah.
have spoken about it, that
Yeah.
especially the last 1 year, on how we're actually all just about striving to
Yeah.
compartmentalize ourselves, whether we are working on
Yeah.
ourselves or our work or the child or sometimes a
Yeah.
relationship with the partner. Because in all of this, bichara wo husband to last priority hota hai. I mean,
Yeah.
most of the
Yeah.
times, yeah, because you have
Yeah.
kids. And then in all of this, you're also constantly, you want to read, and you want to
Yeah.
learn,
Yeah.
and you want to, I mean,
Yeah.
it is. And as much as anyone would say, I think this pandemic has been probably the most difficult for these kids, because while, like, I heard somebody, tell me 2 days back that, oh, you got such a wonderful opportunity to stay with your daughter. I said,
Yeah.
no. I mean, honestly, it was the worst, because you're constantly on calls and the child is
Yeah.
confused.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
message that the child is getting is
Yeah.
that, mother and the father, it's not just the mother, it's equally the father,
Yeah.
because the father is also on
Yeah.
calls,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
not available when I'm there, whereas the message was
Yeah.
something else earlier.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the fact that we have to all admit that it has been difficult is all there, and then we try and mend this year onwards, hopefully.
Yeah, it's warped their reality completely. Like the other day, my little guy comes and he's sitting next to me and he puts up a pillow on the bed and he puts up a pillow at the bottom and he starts whispering and he's like, Mama, I am working. I am busy. And I was just like, that is what their role play has become. This is
Been.
what they are seeing. And like, I think it is both sides of it where it is great that we are seeing, like I have a 2-year-old. So it's wonderful to see his milestones from this close. But
Yeah.
then not being available all the time has also been the tricky part. Like that transition we used to get is so much more acceptable because the kid knows when she's out of sight, she is not there for me. But when she's back, she's mine. Now I'm
Yeah.
just like, I'm here, but I'm not here. And like with being able to set boundaries about not taking calls after a certain hour or not being on the laptop or on the mobile after a certain hour, it's harder said, it's
This thing.
easier said than done. I mean, that compartmentalization just doesn't happen quickly enough.
And
And
I
they're
think
seeing
what
us on the phone all the time.
all the time, yeah.
Yeah.
Mine one has, you'll be very happy to know, mine one has started saying, guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. As a mother, it's very terrifying. So
Oh, yeah.
my husband is like literally rolling his eyes and looking at me and saying, okay, yeah, sure, this
Yeah.
is definitely not coming from me.
Yeah.
But
I think our mental resilience has been tested in every way possible,
way,
and so
yeah,
has the kids. And I think it's also like in some way making us also reprioritize in certain
yeah,
ways and
yeah,
say what really matters at the end of the day. Like, when you
yeah.
look outside, you're like, there are people who have lost their livelihood. There are people who were forced to stay home and stuff like that. And on the other
And not
spectrum,
have an
where
earning.
not have an earning. On the other spectrum, we're still fortunate enough to have the kind of work and jobs that can be sustained through a pandemic like this because we are doing it online. So it's like also the counting of blessings that has come in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think one of the biggest realization has also been the fact that this is going to be tough. And we have to, as women, we have to stop being hard on ourselves and
Yes.
accept that this is tough.
Yeah.
Accept that, the compartmentalization that happens in a day in your head
Yeah.
between the various things that you're doing is going to be
Yeah.
tough, probably tougher
Yeah.
right now, but accept it. It's just easier to handle than
Yeah.
fighting it out.
Yeah.
And you and I have spoken about it, and I think every time I've spoken to you, I've somehow felt relatable, because I was like, oh my god, it's not just my life. Coming to this, Shilpa, I want to talk about, you've both at work and at home, you've spoken about support system through your pregnancies, through work, through the different career shifts that you've had, or jumps, or whatever you want to call
Yeah.
them. What is that support system, and how has that support system helped you, both at work and, I mean, of course, you've spoken professionally, personally about your husband being one of your biggest support systems, but I also want to talk about the support system at work, and how has that
Yeah.
helped you, whether it's mentors or whether it's sometimes even personally the friends or the groups that you are constantly sharing your rants or thoughts or whatever this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think honestly, Anshu, like my biggest support system has been the family, where they have given me the mental freedom and peace to be able to do what I need to do. I mean, we both live fairly far away from the parents, even when we were in Mumbai with the kid and stuff like that. I was relying on a nanny who was wonderful with the kid. But like, after the first 2-3 months of the support that my parents gave me after the baby, I mean, I had to be on my own. So I think one of the biggest things for me had been the confidence and the comfort that my partner gave me in any decision making that I landed up doing, in terms of whether I wanted to continue work, whether I wanted to sit at home, how long I wanted to take in my mat leave and stuff like that. And I think that mental peace is what sort of became the biggest guiding light for me as to how I wanted to go ahead and do it. Like, a support system means different things to different people, but
Yeah.
I had to just find peace that, I'm not going to have family who will be able to help me take care of the kids. So like, how do I create the ecosystem around me? And again, like, I think fairly lucky financially to be able to hire staff who I can rely on and trust and stuff like that. But I had a nanny, but I also hired another lady who would be the backup of the nanny, just to make sure that, if it is two people, there is very little chance that anything wrong will happen with the kid, because there's always a backup if one person is tired and stuff like that. Those kind of things.
छुट्टी लिया तो दूसरा रहेगा.
Yeah. And like, and एक के ऊपर एक additional नजर रहेगी. I mean, you hear these really, really disturbing stories about, how staff is with the kids and stuff. So at least in two, like, there is going to be more peace and order, because you could ask the other person how things are. So I think that, and I actually consciously, and not after the first one, Anshu, but after the second one is where I started feeling more in terms of like, getting to a stage in my career where I want to be scaling up. And, this is the time to sort of, climb the corporate ladder and stuff like that. Like, what are the things that I need to do in order to handle my anxieties? What am I not doing right? And I think one of the things that came in constantly was that, maybe I am not the best at talking about myself. I think that's also like, the way we culturally have been raised. Fundamentally, we don't, self-promote and stuff. And I think that is one thing that struck me when, again, it was at an offsite that there was this I Am Remarkable conference happening where, there was always this emphasis on talking about that if you're stating a fact, it is technically not self-promotion.
So this is something that Google does?
Yeah, so we had it as an internal program, and I think it is also external. If you do a Google search on it, it's just about how you sort of recognize what you're good at and be able to communicate that. And as women, we, you and I were talking about it, that we have this stat, I think, where if a boy feels like around 60% of the capabilities match the job description, then they think that they're a good fit for the job, and we basically look for like that 90%. Yeah, they're fantastic for the job, and like we'll look for that 90% fit before we'll say.
Yeah.
And I think it all came in like when it came to asking for promotions and just asking for like your space under the sun in the organization and the team and stuff like that. So it's like. Yeah. Like you were saying that, the constant work has to be done on ourselves, and we have to be kinder, and we shouldn't expect others to notice us. We have to do the effort of making sure that we are noticed. And the only way we will be noticed is when we put ourselves out there. When we speak about what we have achieved and what we're capable of. And like, to think of it, like, I mean, not to take away from the women who may have had this hard and stuff, but like, even from a manager's point of view, when they're working with 10, when they're working with 15 people, they're not going to fully be aware of what is the depth of the work that you have achieved. You have to go ahead and tell them. You have to get. So I think we women have to stop thinking of ourselves as victims and run away from opportunities just because we're too scared. We have to take them head on and say, this is me. Tell me if I'm really not good enough. And if there isn't a good reason, then you're good to go, right?
But what if I'm constantly getting getting that voice in my head which says I'm not good enough, in spite of the fact that I might be?
Then we seek the external help, because why is the voice in your head constantly telling you that you're not good enough? Have we gone out and checked what our market value is when we go and apply for jobs and for interviews and stuff like that? Like, a manager may end up thinking like, let's actually not even make it about corporate. Let's look at it at home. Like, we have staff who comes in, who helps clean the house and stuff like that, until they land up asking for a raise. How many times have we voluntarily gone ahead and given them a raise? How many times have we voluntarily given? Yeah, almost never, right?
Yeah.
So it is exactly that. At the end of the day, when we're in the working environment, we have to ask for our raise. We have to request for being seen as somebody who has done XYZ. And sometimes, like you and I were talking about, like, I don't think that the people we work for are going to be insensitive. Sometimes they're just
Yeah.
not aware, and we have to take on the responsibility of making
Abilities.
them aware of something that they are saying or something that they are doing is going in the zone of like some sort of unconscious bias. And it's just about making that one tweak in the correction. Like, I am sure when we are in groups of friends where we have the boys and the girls and stuff like that, we are able to make these statements, but we have to
Yeah.
treat our working environment exactly the same
The
way
same
and
way.
stand up for ourselves. Why go into a shell if somebody landed up saying something patriarchal as such? Let's
Yeah.
correct them then and there.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, this is so profound, Shilpa, because I think, and I have to admit it, that I've myself gone through that journey wherein earlier, anything patriarchal or misogynist that I used to hear, I used to just
Yeah,
go back into my shell and say, okay, yeah. But never did I think that that person, that man or a woman, is also the product of the same patriarchal society
yeah,
I am part of.
yeah,
Yes, some people might not agree to what you think or your thought, but there are actually some really wonderful men or women who will agree to your point of view, who will
yeah,
acknowledge, accept, or some, and actually sometimes work on it.
yeah,
What I think as women we fail to do is that in organizations, and especially at workplaces, I'm talking about, that if we have an issue, we do not go and talk about it, we do not
yeah,
raise, and we are not
yeah,
specific in terms of our feedback, right? We will get
yeah,
emotional about it, we will get we'll take things personally, but rather than doing that, I think one of the qualities, as all of us as women should learn, is how to be less emotional about
yeah,
a fact that you're stating, but just state this as a
yeah,
fact, and then things automatically and naturally start looking better for you.
yeah. And I think what that comes with is like, we need to, as women, have the confidence to be able to counter that.
But tell me
Yeah,
something. So you've Google is obviously this really wonderful place to work, especially the way you describe it, right? Of course, we all know Google is one of the best places to work in the world. But I think for me, I've heard so much about the place, and especially the India team, this thing. But you've had like more men that you've been working with, or it's like a equal good number of women also.
I think we've had it fairly balanced. I think, I mean, we take as much care of diversity as it is said to be. I mean, it's been a fairly balanced team. I mean, look at our leaders. I mean, our CEO is a woman at the end of the day. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's been very, very balanced for us internally.
Hmm. But what has been your learning? Because so far I've always worked either at places which have been very skewed towards men or women or professions. Sometimes, so when you're working on talent side, managers are mostly women, but at the
Yeah,
business level it's mostly men. Uh,
yeah,
However, in an organization like Google and YouTube, it's, I think, fairly balanced.
yeah.
What is the difference like in terms of do you feel that it's easier to, because it's a equal like gender distribution, it's easier to share your ideas, or it's fairly personal?
I think it is. I mean, honestly, I haven't had to think about it. As long as I have worked here, it's been like every voice is welcome, every opinion has been welcome. In fact, it is encouraged that we will share our point of views and things because it's a very, very collaborative culture. I don't think it has to do anything with male, female, or any other gender for that matter. It's just as long as you are good at what you're doing, you'll have a place under the sun in the organization. Um, a lot of our apprehensions come because of our internal mindset. Just the way you were saying, there's a little voice
Hmm.
behind our head that would land up saying. So we have to work on overcoming that. As women overall, I think we have to try and overcome that and try not to play the victim card, which in some cases I have felt we have landed up doing.
Yeah.
Um, and I say that not because there are no victims. I say that from the conscious awareness that, my mom refused to be the victim because she was willing to be strong and raise her voice against whatever oppression she was getting from the family and not them not supporting her starting a business and stuff like that at that point of time, or even plucking
Sure.
us out of Nagpur and moving to Pune when she thought that the right opportunities for her kids will come in over there. She's always been the strong one at home who stood up for us, for herself, for everybody. So when I've seen that, I have seen the fruits of her being able to do it instead of sitting in a corner and crying about the hand she has been dealt because she didn't pick up the pieces and fight for herself.
Sure.
So that essentially just stayed with me. And that's, I mean, if there is anything I would want to give back to the women who may be listening to your podcast,
Yeah.
and, any female peers that I have, is if you think that something is not going the way you want it, raise your voice against it. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that we have to, file cases or go completely batshit crazy in that way. But
Yeah.
start with the change by saying
That
no
one
to
small
things that you're
thing.
not okay with.
Yeah. Yeah. Smaller, I mean, actually smaller. Forget about the badi revolution ki baatein ho rahi hai. That's a big thing. I'm saying even, at on a everyday basis, there are steps, there are narratives that you can choose to own.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like
Wonderful.
if we're comfortable being homemakers, then let's be happy about it. No one is forcing us to. But if somebody is forcing us, let's raise the question why.
Sure, sure, sure. I mean, this is so interesting because this is coming from you, who's while there in a very fairly gender neutral organization, but you've had your journey in terms of trying to take those different jumps in terms of career, the kind of childhood you've had, wherein you've seen a very very strong mother,
Yeah.
who's led you by example. But tell me, in all of this, Shilpa, where do you come? How do you center yourself? How do you unwind? How do you take care of yourself? And I want you to talk about, that. I know it's difficult, especially the
Oh
last year.
gosh. Yeah.
And we've all struggled with taking care of
Yeah.
ourselves, in the last year. But
Yeah.
what are the smaller things that you do to be able to take care of yourself, and why should you do that?
So I think a few things that I sort of set up, and I mean, I wouldn't say I was perfect at it, is something that I've done better this year, right now, starting in January, than I did a lot of it in the last year, was that, I started compartmentalizing. I was like 7:30 to 8:15 before the kids' school starts, before I need to start, is my time. So I sat down, had an agreement with my husband that you'll take care of the kids during this time and get them ready for school. I will go down for my walk, because that was really going to be the time where I was not surrounded by anybody. No one needed to talk to me. I didn't need to talk to anybody, because like we were talking about, last year was all about, like, you're a hamster on this wheel. You're waking up, you're getting the kids ready for school, you're doing the work. As soon as work is over, you're spending time with the kids, and then you're either so freaking tired by the end of it that you want to go off to sleep, or you're after 9 o'clock, 9:30, when the kids have gone to sleep, you sit with your spouse and have some sort of conversation and then go to sleep. But where is the time for yourself in all of this? And it was just like, I think it was reaching a point where I was getting snappy, and I was snapping at the kids, and I was saying, this is not what I need. Let's find what is it that I need, what works for me as peace of mind for myself, which will keep me in a better mood for the rest of the day. And then I sort of set these compartments, like, 7:30, I will go down for my walk. I'll come up. I'll make sure that the kids are ready. I'll do a book reading with my younger one and stuff. Around 9:30 is when I will start my day. During the day, I think I will have it as less interruptions as possible, but, like, by and large, pull in my, like, 9 to 5:30 at the very least. 5:30 as far as possible, shut the laptop, hang with the kids, and then pick up work later on if there is something to continue, or otherwise hang with the husband, and then, just figure what I want to do. But that 1 hour that I get in the morning is sacrosanct. Like, that is my peace
That
of
is your
mind. And I think it's
self-care
just,
time.
yeah, yeah. And, like, I think just mentally creating a routine has sort of helped bring in the predictability of what will work and what wouldn't. And then on the weekends, as far as possible, whenever it is possible, I would just, like, be laptops down, phones away. I mean, there is a joke at home that, like, you can never find your phone, because every time it will be like, oh, I had to dunzo that. Where is my phone? Somebody get me my phone. And they're like, you spend more time finding that phone of yours than doing anything on it.
But that's wonderful as far as you're managing to stay away from it.
Yeah, because, like, I think if somebody has to call, they'll call. I mean,
Yeah.
I am sure at this point of time, I think we've all sort of realize the boundaries of the weekend when it comes to emails and stuff. Like, if there is something urgent, I will get a message and I will get a call. It's okay for me to not constantly check my emails. Like, I have been able to at least, break away from that anxiety of not constantly wanting to be on social media and constantly checking my phone. When I get to it, I am doing everything. I'm available on Twitter. I'm looking at my Instagram. I'm looking at my emails. I'm doing my WhatsApp. I'm having my calls and stuff. When I'm on, I'm on. When I'm off, then I'm consciously trying to be as offline as possible.
Sure. So I think, compartmentalization, consciousness, and maybe that 1 hour of
Creating that routine. Yeah.
creating that routine or discipline is what you'd call. And I
Yeah.
mean, that's one of the most common things I've heard as we come towards the end of the podcast, that one of the most common things that I have kind of found in all the women that I'm talking to is that importance of that routine or discipline, and just religiously giving it to yourself, and in the long run that kind of pays to you, because that's your only time, or that's your thing, and you do take conscious efforts towards that self healing, or whatever you want to call it, meditation, exercise, whatever you do, whatever. Or some women I know are dancing, but whatever. But that is like a common thread, and which is wonderful. And I think it's important, especially in the current times that we've led in the last 1 year, that we don't lose kind of track of that. But thank you, Shilpa. This has been a very, 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 very enlightening and a nice chat, because I normally tend to I've met, or I've spoken to writers, directors, women in different creative spaces and entertainment, but I think having the point of view of somebody who's moved from an arranged marriage, from a normal upbringing to an arranged marriage setup, to to actually chasing her dreams and staying by it and thriving in it, is what I think is a representation of most of the women in India. And which is we all need to kind of somewhere follow through and not give up. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast, doing this, and it was wonderful having you. Thank you for watching this. If you've enjoyed this conversation, make sure you hit the like button, comment what was your favorite part, and also subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to press the bell notification to never miss a new episode, because we have a lot more coming. This podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, Google, JioSaavn by the name Questions I Wanted to Ask. You can listen to it wherever you like. Link will be in the description. You can follow me on social media, Instagram, Twitter, etc. And all the links are in the description. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.